Part 98. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 971. He was rapidly closing the distance between himself and those ancient beings. The longer the time, the better for him. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and the God Realm card was opened again. At this time, Lin Yi had come to the basement, and there were 100,000 dimensional pockets piled up in front of him. Each dimensional pocket contained 1,000,000 spiritual wave weapon systems, including spiritual wave transmission devices. His thoughts communicated with the God Realm card in his hand, and the next moment, the God Realm card emitted a hazy glow. The 100,000 dimensional pockets in front of him were all sucked into the God Realm card under the radiance and disappeared. When all the dimensional pockets disappeared, the God Realm card once again emitted a wonderful power. One by one, the items containing the power of space were sprayed out and quickly piled up in front of him. These were the rewards sent by the powerful people from other worlds who had reached an agreement with him. Lin Yi's thoughts swept over, and a hint of joy suddenly appeared on his face. 50% of them were the inheritance items of the truth of the enlightened, which contained the imaginary traces of the Tao created by various lives. This time, he exchanged for more than 1 billion pieces. With a thought, all the inheritance items installed in the space equipment were sent to the House of Time. There, the Blue Star clone will quickly absorb the truth in it. At this time, the Blue Star clone has condensed a complete imaginary Dao Mark world because of the large number of inheritance items obtained from the Long Gang people. It can already mobilize the unimaginable spiritual power to promote the imaginary Dao Mark world and exert the terrifying power of the 1,000-fold level of the heavenly immortal Dao. The upper limit of power has even surpassed Lin Yi's third clone. This is the power of the Blue Star martial arts system. The more perfect the condensed Dao Mark universe is, the more spiritual power will be infinitely increased, and the combat power will continue to increase. In the entire Wanqi house, Lin Yi's Blue Star clone has come from behind and become the real number one in combat power, and the original body is not as good. Even for the few ancient great lives seen in the strange place, Lin Yi is no longer afraid. In terms of power alone, he has already stood among the top group of people in the void, and he is even more fearless with the help of the True Destiny solution. But he has hidden all these powers very well, without any exposure. The more cards he has, the safer he will be. The more clearly he is seen by others, the closer he will be to death. As Lin Yi puts the spiritual wave weapon system created during this period into 100,000 different world groups, a huge storm is beginning. In just a few days in the void, 100,000 world groups have undergone earth-shaking changes. Hundreds of billions of spiritual wave weapons were quickly distributed to the top warriors in these world groups. Then a vigorous counterattack began. The first thing is to clear the strange existence spreading in the void, and these warriors form huge formations one after another. The spiritual wave transmission device has become the core of the formation. It can charge all spiritual wave weapons anytime and anywhere, and the formation is like a torrent, rushing into one piece of strange void after another. With the existence of the spiritual wave transmission device, all spiritual wave weapons no longer have the danger of spiritual wave exhaustion. All the strange existences they killed, their strange essences will be absorbed into Lin Yi's spiritual wave sphere. While increasing the upper limit of the spiritual wave sphere, it is transformed into countless spiritual waves, and then fed back to the spiritual wave transmission device. This forms a huge virtuous circle. Every day, the upper limit of Lin Yi's spiritual wave sphere is expanding like blowing air. If he just came to the void, the upper limit of the spiritual wave sphere was 1. Then now his spiritual wave sphere has reached 100,000. Now every day, the upper limit of his spiritual wave sphere is increasing at a rate of twice. It won't be long before the upper limit of the spiritual wave sphere will reach tens of millions of times when he just came, or even hundreds of millions of times. At that time, Lin Yi will be infinitely close to eternity. Even if he is attacked by various terrorists, it is almost impossible to kill him. As long as the spiritual wave is not exhausted, he will not die. Feeling that his spiritual wave sphere upper limit is increasing every moment, Lin Yi showed a faint smile on his face. If I use the spirit wave weapon to eliminate all the weirdness in the entire void, I don't know how much my power will increase. Maybe even if I don't complete the infinite destiny, I'm afraid it will be difficult to be killed. This should be easier to achieve than the immortal cultivation system, the blue star cultivation system, and even the 5 systems. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at the God Realm card. This time he took on 100,000 tasks again. But the production must be accelerated, the current production is still not enough. There are too many world groups in the void, almost endless, at the trillion level. Just when Lin Yi was lost in thought, a huge noise sounded in the Wanqi house. A person was loudly announcing something, attracting everyone's attention. Lin Yi was naturally no exception. He set his eyes on this person. Just listen to this guy say excitedly. The latest news is that someone has discovered the remains of the ancient gods in another world group. The remains of the ancient gods this time are extraordinary. According to the news that has been spread, it seems that it is the place where the ancient gods study eternity. Many people have already gone there. Maybe we can develop the eternal secrets of the ancient gods. Everyone was excited when they heard this person's words. A place to study eternity? Is it true? How is it possible? There is such a place. Do the ancient gods still need to study eternity? In the midst of the noise, countless people were speculating and raising questions one after another. Lin Yi frowned slightly when he heard this. The ancient gods, the creators of the void, created the 5 major rules and the miracle coins. All the rules running in the void are derived from the 5 innate rules. Logically speaking, the ancient gods themselves should be eternal. Since they are eternal, why do they still need to study the power of eternity? This is very strange in itself. Unless they are not eternal at all. This is the question that Lin Yi has been thinking about in his mind. If it is really eternal, the ancient gods cannot be eroded by weirdness, nor can they disappear collectively, leaving only a chaotic void. Even those ancient mysterious beings, although they are filled with the same eternal aura as the chairman of the Void Destiny Committee. But Lin Yi does not think they are really eternal. He always felt that there seemed to be a huge secret behind the eternal aura. And this secret may only be truly understood when one truly steps into this level. He thought in his heart, should I go there? The house of everything I created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 972. The Eternal Power of the Ancient Gods Research. Forget it, even if I go, I may not be able to obtain the research results of the ancient god. Now I have only one most important thing. Use the spiritual wave to exchange for a large amount of resources to complete the establishment of the 2 Daohen universes of the Blue Star clone. Only by reversing the infinite true destiny can there be real hope. Having made a decision in his heart, Lin Yi no longer cared about the ancient gods' ruins, but fell into deep thinking. Just when the ancient gods' ruins were in full swing, the entire void was undergoing an inexplicable change. The strange essence shrouded in the void like smoke seemed to be stimulated by some mysterious thing. In the huge life void, the strange essences began to appear one after another vortex. These vortices are distributed in various corners of the life void, some inside the world group, and some in the pure void outside the world group. Then, a terrible thing happened, a large number of strange existences swarmed out of the vortex formed by these strange essences. They began to attack all the life they saw like locusts. In just a short time, the alarm was quickly transmitted to countless world groups. The silent arrival of the war broke everyone's plan, including Lin Yi's plan to slowly accumulate strength. In the Wanqi house, countless bounty hunters were looking at a screen on the top of the bar. A terrifying scene was playing on the screen at this time. A large number of strange beings gushed out from a huge strange vortex. A large formation covered with light blocked the front of this vortex. Everyone held their breath and watched the war on the screen. The mighty strange army rushed into the large formation covered with light. There were millions of soldiers inside, and their power was completely connected. They all held spiritual wave weapons in their hands. In the center of the formation, the spiritual wave transmission device was constantly transmitting spiritual waves and injecting them into one spiritual wave weapon after another. The hazy green light covered every corner of the formation, forming a huge spiritual wave field. A strange torrent rushed into the formation, and what greeted them was countless torrents of power. The two huge torrents collided countless times in an instant, exploding waves and waves one after another. The crazy weird existence was crushed by the torrent of power, swallowed up by the spirit wave, and completely destroyed. The huge spirit wave formation covered an area of hundreds of millions of kilometers. The huge weird vortex had a diameter of millions of kilometers. The weird existences that rushed out were endless, and there was no end in sight. These weird existences that rushed out seemed to be just the advanced team, because their power level was not high. Most of them were only at the level of human immortals, or even ghost immortals, and were simply pure cannon fodder. But their number was too large, and even a huge formation of hundreds of millions of kilometers could not completely cover them. However, the only good news was that the huge formation was like a reef, firmly blocking the top of the weird vortex. It eliminated wave after wave of invading weird existences. Although there were still many weird existences that broke out of the blockade, they could not cause huge disasters. This war has affected the entire void in a short period of time, and countless world groups have been threatened. In these world groups, almost all of the great beings have taken action. In the world group where Linyi is located, a huge vortex of strange nature has also appeared. The Void Fate Committee has mobilized a large number of warriors. In conjunction with the Lingbo weapon system, a huge formation has been formed, completely blocking the upper and lower four directions of this vortex area. An absolute cage has been created to completely seal this place. This cage almost restrains 80% of the troops of the Void Fate Committee. At the same time, the remaining 20% of the troops are chasing all the strange beings that escaped within the void range of this world group. But the void is a random and disordered world. Even these strange beings will scatter in this randomness and disorder after rushing into it. Therefore, it is not a simple matter to kill and chase these strange beings. The Void Fate Committee quickly issued a task to all people in the entire world group who can walk in the void. Carry out all-round pursuit without blind spots. Anyone who kills or captures strange beings can exchange resources according to the level of strangeness. The distribution of all resources will be jointly undertaken by all forces of the Void Fate Committee. At the same time, the Soul Master of the Void Fate Committee also approached Linyi again. This time their request was to order a large number of Lingbo weapons, as many as they could get. Linyi also seized the opportunity and asked them to provide a large amount of raw materials and things that could produce mechanical Dao substances. In the House of Time, in addition to the ancestors of the gods, there are more and more strange things that can produce the same effects as them. In addition to the relics of the gods, there are also spiritual items called spiritual crystals, evil wills, and justice lights, etc., which naturally contain mechanical Dao traces and are constantly produced. The increase of these things undoubtedly accelerated the refining of Lingbo weapons. In order to save time, Linyi even asked the Void Fate Committee to manufacture the weapon part of the Lingbo weapons according to the drawings he provided. He was only responsible for manufacturing the most important energy part, which greatly saved his time. In the House of Time, he can manufacture millions of weapon-grade energy storage devices, thousands of large energy storage devices, and hundreds of energy transmission devices every day. A large amount of funds flowed into the House of Everything, and then Linyi ordered Brandy to go to the Void City to continuously purchase the basic supplies needed. The House of Everything has completely become the rear base of the entire Void Fate Committee at this time, and countless spiritual wave weapons are constantly being manufactured. In just 3 void days, thousands of years have passed in the House of Time. Tens of billions of spiritual wave weapons have been produced, spread to every world and void base controlled by the Void Fate Committee. The House of Time, this is not only owned by Lin Yi, as the Void Fate Committee, which commands a world group, also has a lot of such things. In a short period of time, the Void Fate Committee has completely suppressed all the weird existences in this world group with full resources and no loss. Even those weird worlds that were completely occupied have been liberated. The huge weird vortex, under the suppression of the spiritual wave weapon system, could not cause any damage at all and was completely restricted to an area. With the naked eye, a huge spiritual wave of light can be seen covering the outer layer of the strange vortex. After waves of strange beings rush out, they will be completely destroyed in this spiritual wave formation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 973. All the worlds controlled by the Void Destiny Committee have been completely restored, with the help of an astonishing number of spiritual wave weapons. The strange existence has almost completely disappeared from this world group. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Immediately, the Void Destiny Committee spread the news of complete recovery throughout the void. All processes were not concealed. The huge power of the Lingbo weapon system resounded throughout the void and attracted the attention of countless eyes. Countless world groups have directly or indirectly contacted the Void Destiny Committee through various methods. Requires the purchase of a large number of Lingbo weapon systems. For a time, the spiritual wave weapon became the most powerful thing in the entire void. In the Everything Room, the Soul Master looked at Lin Yi. There are now more than 300,000 world groups connected to the Void Destiny Committee through various methods. This data is increasing exponentially every minute. Every world group wants to purchase a large number of Lingbo weapon systems. Can you meet their requirements? A faint smile appeared on Lin Yi's face. Meeting their requirements is not a problem. Actually, during the process of annihilating the weird ones in our world, I discovered something. If I solely rely on myself to make spiritual wave weapons, I will never be able to meet the entire void's demand for spiritual wave weapons. So, the way of cooperation with other world groups needs to change. In fact, there is only one most important thing in a Lingbo weapon, and that is Lingbo energy. As for the weapon structure of the Lingbo weapon itself, it is not a problem for any world group. They can solve it themselves. The only thing they want to get is the spiritual wave transmission device. So for all subsequent transactions, I will only be responsible for manufacturing the spiritual wave transmission device, and all other spiritual wave weapon systems will be manufactured by themselves. And they can create corresponding spiritual wave weapons according to their needs. I'm only responsible for selling energy. My request is that all rules inheritance items created by acquired life forms in their hands must be handed over to me. Secondly, 1/10 of all proceeds from their world group must be handed over to me. Upon hearing Lin Yi's request, the Soul Master was slightly stunned. This can be said to be the lion's opening. Of course, Lin Yi has the confidence. Who makes Lin Yi the only one in the entire void who controls this mysterious spiritual wave energy? This is an absolute monopoly, and no matter how harsh the price offered by the other party, it can only be tolerated. Each world group only needs to pay 1/10 of the income to save the ending of destruction, and there is no loss no matter what. But after this, Lin Yi's accumulated wealth will surpass any force in the void. With such a huge wealth, even the Soul Master will feel his heart pounding. He took a deep breath and said, I will reply to all the world groups that contact us with your answer. If they agree, let them come to God's domain to sign the contract. The Soul Master nodded, Okay. Looking at the Soul Masters disappearing back, Lin Yi's eyes were slightly excited. This is the optimal solution he came up with after thinking for a long time. What he sells is actually Lingbo energy from beginning to end, and he is not afraid of anyone going back on his word, because he can cut off the transmission of Lingbo at any time. When we were on Earth, the lighthouse country controlled the global oil flow, as if it had strangled all countries by the neck. Oil is the blood of all industries. Without oil, there would be no industry and no civilization. For all void worlds, spiritual waves are the blood that drives away strange things. Without spiritual waves, everything is empty talk. But by holding the bloodline, no one would dare to violate the contract signed by Lin Yi. As long as weirdness is not completely eliminated, all world groups will be shrouded in the threat of weirdness. Lin Yi quietly waited for the news, and the conditions for his release swept through the void like a hurricane. In a huge world group, a group of beings shrouded in light, like gods, are having a meeting. They rule this group of worlds, each possessing 1,000 or 10,000 times the power of the immortal Dao level. Every move has the power to destroy the world and shake time and space. This is a world group belonging to the gods. Countless people in the entire world must worship them, pray to them, and offer everything they have. The civilization of the world group completely revolves around the gods, and they have always dominated everything. But the news from Lin Yi made them extremely angry. In the palace of the gods, the 6 kings of the gods had angry light in their eyes. Who is this person, dares to make such a crazy request? Should we knock on the door and arrest this person? His secrets are all in that mysterious psychic energy. As long as we can capture him, I'm sure I can dig out his power from his soul. The one who spoke was one of the 6 god kings, King Mok. He is the innate demon god, a great life form born in the void, connected to countless life forms in this world group. Shinto developed in their worship and became one of the oldest god kings. And the power it is most proficient in is the power at the soul level. As long as any existing soul falls into his hands, there will be no secrets. God King Moko spoke, and everyone's eyes showed a trace of solemnity. The other god kings looked at him quietly, and one of the god kings shrouded in red flames said slowly, "There is a question. This man is now known to countless worlds. His weapons are crucial. If we take action, we end up not getting what we want, which results in his death. The end that awaits us is probably destruction. After all, weirdness is our ultimate enemy." When everyone heard this, their hearts trembled slightly, as the 6 god kings had survived for countless years. They enjoy the enshrinement of this world group, and the supreme power and resources drive them forward. Losing all this would be unbearable for them. And they still have to face the angry strong men in the void. God King Moko was silent for a moment, and then took a deep breath. Time has not waited for me. If I had more time, I would never have accepted this condition. This time, we agree for the time being. Once the weird things are suppressed, we will go find this person. Can agree. The 6 divine kings all agreed to the suggestion of God King Moko. Everyone knew that this was actually the only choice. After all, this effort is nothing compared to the bizarre risks. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 974. In a mysterious space, 5 figures gathered here again. Things have changed. The first stage of the weirdness has completely arrived, much earlier than we expected. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. We must temporarily stop dealing with Lin Yi. The information from the Void Destiny Committee shows that the world group they are in has completely suppressed the weirdness. This is good news for the current situation. We need to use Lin Yi's power first to suppress the weird invasion that permeates the entire void. At the same time, we can study his spiritual waves in secret. Transmission device. I found a trace of thought imprint inside. According to my observation, it should come from Lin Yi. The most peculiar thing is that all the spiritual wave energy flows from this trace of thought imprint. This means that as long as we can trace the source, we can find out what the secret of his power is. This is probably his flaw. He himself is not aware of this problem. This person suddenly appeared. Obviously, he was not born in a big force. He didn't understand that the imprint would sometimes reveal a lot of information. We can take this opportunity to understand where his power comes from. Originally, I suspected that he was some kind of spiritual existence, but now I can rule it out. Using his power, we can avoid exposing our traces in this disaster. Number 3 suddenly said, but this man requires all world groups that use spiritual wave weapons to give him 1/10 of their income. The resources gathered under such conditions will be extremely terrifying, you should understand that. With such a huge amount of resources, he may do something unexpected. You should also understand that this man will not propose so many resources for no reason, right? He also proposed the rule inheritance items of the enlightened. This thing can be exposed to spiritual power. We have discovered the secret for countless years. The acquired rules are divided into a series of void evolution and a series of life creation that violates the rules of reality. These two series have their own mysteries. Do you think the spiritual power he possesses is related to the rules that violate reality? No. 3's words immediately attracted the attention of others. It is very likely, otherwise he would not collect these things. Another person in the shadow said slowly, he is number 2 among the 5 people. We can also study this kind of things and find the secrets related to the mind. Then, study the spiritual wave transmission device and find the secrets. No. 2's method is feasible, let's do it first. Number 1, who is in charge of the overall situation, said slowly. At this time, one of the remaining 2 people said, what about No. 4? He has disappeared for a long time. I am afraid that the infected ancient god's body has been mastered by him. Maybe he will become a complete body. Number 1 looked at the person who spoke, let's put aside No. 4's matter for the time being, now is a time of trouble. It is the most important thing to lie dormant and maintain our strength and find the secrets of the mind. Even if Number 4 becomes a complete body, he is not invincible, but has perfected eternity. Number 5, you don't have to focus on him. Number 5 heard this and his eyes flickered, okay, then let's put it aside for the time being, let him go when he is gone. Number 6, who had been silent all this time, said, there is one more thing. I have been investigating those old antiques that I have been paying attention to. They went to the strange place again. I have been observing them for a long time, and they seem to be looking for something all the time. Every time they enter the strange place, they will go to one ancient god ruin after another after leaving. This is the 3rd time they have done this. These old guys are not ordinary strong men, each of them hides deep secrets. It is not a simple matter to deal with them. No six's thoughts are low and have frequency, a solemn and cold thought. Number 1 was silent for a moment, let's continue to observe and see what they are looking for. I once knew something by chance. The ancient gods seemed to have obtained something in front of the distant coordinates. This thing only appeared once and then disappeared. I suspect they are looking for this thing. This thing seems to be related to some secret. These old antiques are mysterious and have existed since before the establishment of the void. They are from the same period as the ancient gods, so they may know something. If we act rashly, we won't get what they want. Let them toss in the strange place first. When they find something, we will take it away. Everything in the void belongs to us and should belong to us. They are just our tools. The task of observation will continue to be handed over to you, No. 6. Number 6 nodded slowly, okay. Darkness returned to nothingness, and 5 figures disappeared here. At this time, in the desert void, there was a strange space-time. It rises and falls under the wind of the endless storm in the desert void. The appearance of this space-time is 10% tiny, and at first glance it looks only the size of a human head. It remains motionless under the wind of the hurricane, like an unshakable iron stone. In this mysterious space-time sphere, there lies a dark coffin. Inside is the mysterious body of the ancient god. This infected body was seized by the mysterious number 4. It turns out that he moved the body of the ancient god to the desert void. In this extremely dangerous area, no one can find his trace. This huge body of the ancient god slowly wakes up, and it is filled with majestic power. But the strange fluff that grew all over his body due to the infection still exists. The body of the ancient god, or number 4, showed a hint of excitement in his eyes, feeling the mysterious power in his body, which is the real power of the ancient god. It has the mysterious power to create everything. He slowly walked out of the coffin, feeling the narrow space of more than 10 kilometers in radius, and raised his hand and gently pulled. The rules of space and time were directly pulled out by him, and they were extremely clear in front of him. It was like countless networks, woven by countless extremely tiny space-time particles. Number 4 carefully watched the network he pulled out, with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Sure enough, the rules in the void are the product of the ancient gods weaving various basic particles. Originally, there should be only pure basic particles of time, space, soul, matter, and energy. The house of everything I created. Author, Xuanhuan Luan Tianji. Chapter 975. The ancient gods used these materials, sorted these particles into categories, and finally formed the so-called 5 and 8 rules. In the process of compilation, the ancient gods also simplified the complex, integrated the 5 rules into one, changed their essence, and gained eternity. In other words, the ancient gods were not eternal beings at the beginning, but after creating the void, they developed the eternal path. I see, but why did the ancient gods disappear? One mystery was solved, and another mystery appeared. There were countless questions in No 4's eyes, but no one would answer him. At this time, he could feel an extremely evil power flowing in his body. It has vaguely merged with the power of the ancient gods, making the power of the ancient gods even more evil. The two seem to have formed a kind of balanced relationship. He took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. This evil power has merged with the body of the ancient god. Relying on the power of the mind, I will not be affected for the time being. But I still have to find a way to completely eliminate this strange aura. Otherwise, the fusion between me and this body will never reach 100%. There were countless lights flashing in No 4's eyes. Suddenly, countless information flowed into his mind from outside this space and time. Has the first stage of the strange invasion completely erupted in the void? This is troublesome. Spirit wave weapon system. It can actually eliminate the strange essence. Incredible power. But this is an opportunity. If this power can really eliminate the strange essence, then it should also be able to eliminate the strange essence that invaded the body of the ancient god. Thinking of this, countless thoughts flashed in his eyes. Maybe this can be done. There was a gleam in his eyes, and he seemed to have made a decision. The mysterious number 4 stepped out of this space and time and appeared in the desert void. The violent void storm blew on him, splashing countless explosions. He reached back and grabbed the sphere of time and space and put it away. He turned his head to look in the direction of the life void, took a step forward, and directly tore through countless storms. As he left, an extremely dark claw tore through the void, covering the area of tens of millions of kilometers. Rumble. As if the world was created, everything in the world turned into powder in an instant. No void rules could exist, everything turned into the most primitive particles, and only a dark claw appeared here. Without catching anything, the huge claw slowly retracted and finally disappeared. This place returned to its original state again, and countless void storms blew past from afar. This area that was almost turned into vacuum particles was flooded again. All traces were erased, as if nothing had happened. In the life void, number 4 appeared here, and his body remained at a height of 2 meters. He turned his head to look at the desert void, where something seemed to be watching him. He took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. The desert void, it seems, is not really a desert. There are some dangerous things in it. Even my ancient god body feels an instinctive threat. I don't know whether the appearance of the desert void is a blessing or a curse. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of solemnity in his eyes. The ancient gods left a lot of mysteries. The strange land, the desert void, none of them is simple. Thinking, his figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. When he appeared again, he had come to the void wormhole of a world group. He was surrounded by a faint dark golden light, and his figure began to change rapidly. In the end, he turned into a humanoid with a metal texture. The power was quickly converged, not a trace was leaked, and the eternal characteristics were hidden deeper. At this time, he was like an ordinary Tianxiandao level strongman. This world group has fallen into war, and a large number of void strongmen, void fleets, and war weapons have been invested in the war against the weirdness. Countless weird things were wiped out, but a large amount of weird essences were released into the void, making the void of this world group even colder. Number 4 looked indifferent, watching all this quietly, and shook his head slightly. Unfortunately, this kind of offensive will only increase the speed of their spread. The next moment, he appeared in the center of this world group, where there was a huge void fortress. This fortress was emitting wonderful power at this time, and a huge formation covered an area of tens of millions of miles. The formation was composed of small fortresses one after another, which were densely packed with various soldiers. The power fluctuations of these soldiers were almost all at the lowest level of Tianxiandao, but they were all produced soldiers, not those outsiders who rushed out of the world group. The potential of these soldiers has been exhausted in this process of stimulation, and it is almost impossible to grow. However, their combat power is unquestionable, especially now that they are all equipped with mysterious spiritual wave weapons. This mysterious formation was also completely covered in a green glow. As long as any weird thing rushes into this light, it will first be strangled by the power of the formation, and then the weird essence will be swallowed up by the power of this blue light. When number 4 came here, he naturally had his purpose and quietly stepped into this formation. His appearance is covered with the spiritual power he has mastered, directly blocking the depth of the spiritual waves. At the same time, a mysterious token appeared in his hand. The huge fortress located in the center of the formation created a strange attraction, pulling him quickly towards the fortress. 10 minutes later, he arrived at a huge palace in the fortress. There is only a huge throne here, and sitting on it is a powerful being of a non-human species. He is 10 meters tall, has a crocodile head, is covered in scales, wears a huge gold-like armor, and holds a golden spear in his hand. He looked at number 4 in front of him, slowly stood up from the throne, and walked down step by step. Quietly kneeling down on one knee, bowing his head like number 4, "Great Master, your loyal servant pays you the highest respect." Number 4 nodded lightly and reached the throne in one step. He sat calmly on the throne and looked down at his servant. "Report to me the latest situation in detail, especially all the information about the Lingbo weapon system." "Yes, Great Master," the giant crocodile-like king lowered his head and said. "You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 976. A flood of information flowed into No 4's mind. His face did not change at all. He quickly understood countless information. He frowned slightly, The owner of this spiritual wave weapon is really greedy. 1/10 of the resources produced by the world group, what a huge resource. But if this power is only controlled by him, it is not impossible to hold all living beings with it. Take me to the spiritual wave transmission device. Yes, great master. This world group is ruled by this crocodile giant, called the Beast God World Group, and this crocodile calls himself the Beast God. But I'm afraid no one knows that this existence who rules a world group is actually the servant of the mysterious number 4. The spiritual wave transmission device is located in this huge palace, in the side hall behind the throne, and is personally guarded by the crocodile Beast God. Number 4 came here and looked at the spiritual wave transmission device in front of him. Countless brilliance flashed in his eyes, and he instantly understood all the structures of this device. He sneered, this guy really intends to control the source of this energy. He slowly stretched out his hand and directly grasped an energy output port of the spiritual wave transmission device. The majestic spiritual wave filled his body, and the strange power in his body that was almost integrated with the power of the ancient god began to boil violently as if it had encountered a natural enemy. No 4's body also changed dramatically in an instant, and countless strange tentacles and hairs emerged from his body. His body expanded rapidly, reaching hundreds of meters, almost equal to the height of this palace. The tentacles and hairs on his body were twisting wildly, as if twisting like a dying insect. The majestic green light continued to shine out from his body, and a trace of strange power was dissolved by the green light, and at the same time, this trace of strange essence disappeared from his body. A few minutes passed in a blink of an eye, and the majestic strange power in his body had completely disappeared. The pure power of the ancient god surged in his body, all the hairs on his body disappeared, and his body was covered with countless fine caves. It was as if all the strange substances were pulled out of his body. The dense appearance was enough to make any person with trypophobia feel numb all over. The power of the ancient god was running in his body, and all the gaps in the ancient god's body began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few minutes, all the gaps grew and healed, and a hint of joy appeared in his eyes. At this time, his body had completely merged with the ancient god's body. In the deepest part of the ancient god's brain, there was a strange area, as deep as the abyss, and the spiritual power mastered by number 4 was constantly invading there. Only by completely conquering this place, he could really become an ancient god. However, that area was not so easy to conquer, and the real consciousness of this body should be sleeping there. And now what he had to do was to erode the real consciousness of the ancient god and make himself an ancient god. He had tried countless methods, and only the power of the mind could touch this mysterious area. Obviously, the ancient god had taken precautions before he fell asleep. The power of the mind is mysterious and unpredictable, and no one has mastered it perfectly, so it is best to use this power to defend one's fundamental consciousness. At this time, with the spiritual waves spreading all over the body, this wonderful power seemed to have affected this mysterious area. A weak wave suddenly appeared from this area, which immediately stimulated No 4's consciousness. Is this, the will of the ancient god awakening? Instantly, number 4 realized that something was wrong, although he had occupied this body now. But the original owner of this body is not dead yet, and the other party still has the initiative over this body. He has not completely eliminated the traces of the ancient god in this body. Immediately, he let go of his hand and cut off the access to the spiritual wave transmission device. The spiritual wave quickly disappeared from his body, and the wave emitted from the mysterious area in his mind also quickly dimmed. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. It was so dangerous, I almost alarmed the will of the ancient god. But this spiritual wave is really mysterious, it can actually awaken the will of the ancient god. Fortunately, I was prepared and have been suppressing this will. The will of number 4 permeated the body of the ancient god, removing the remaining marks of the ancient god bit by bit. The hidden dangers in the body were completely eliminated, and a hint of joy appeared in his eyes. Looking at the beast god, continue to use the spiritual wave weapon to eliminate the weirdness. I will live here for a while, don't let anyone disturb me. The giant crocodile beast god nodded slowly, yes, great master. The giant crocodile beast god watched all this from beginning to end, but was extremely silent, without any nonsense. Watching the giant crocodile beast god leave, number 4 sat cross-legged in front of the spiritual wave transmission device, with a mysterious light flashing in his eyes, quietly observing it. Or to say, observing the trace of thought imprint in it. He was looking for the source of this spiritual wave, using the power of this ancient god to analyze its essence. At this time, Lin Yi didn't know that his spiritual wave transmission device had been noticed by some mysterious beings and was being studied. They were studying what this spiritual wave was and why it could eliminate the weird essence. Some people were even studying his mind imprint. They wanted to trace the source and find his flaws. In the Wanqi house, because the weirdness reached the first stage in the void, the weird atmosphere inside also skyrocketed tenfold. A large number of weird beings appeared continuously, causing some pressure on the Wanqi house. However, as the resources of one world after another were sent to Lin Yi. In the underground maze and the living area upstairs, large formations have been arranged one after another. The terrifying formations dragged all the weird beings that entered the Wanqi house into the abyss of death. A large amount of weird power was sucked into the Wanqi house, which continuously strengthened the essence of various weird things in the Wanqi house. At the same time, all the formations arranged by Lin Yi were integrated into the spiritual wave transmission device and various spiritual wave weapons as the foundation of the formation. The integration of spiritual waves can almost eliminate all weirdness, so that they will die immediately once they come, and there is no second choice at all. A large amount of resources are stored in the underground maze, all of which come from one world after another. At this time, Lin Yi was constantly checking these resources, looking for available space treasures to hold more resources and reduce the pressure on the underground maze. Suddenly, a door came into his sight. It was a golden door with various wonderful patterns all over it. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 977. Inside the gate is a vast space, which can even hold a solar system. This is a treasure called Sanctuary, and it seems that the time and space inside is a very special place. It exists in a dimension and space that cannot be found in reality. It can only be reached through this gate. Once the gate is refined, only the refiner can open this mysterious space. The most peculiar thing is not just that, this gate has a wonderful function. It seems to be able to transform into a spiritual state and exist at the spiritual level. This magical function attracted Lin Yi's attention at the first time. At this time, the Golden Gate has been completely refined by him, and he appeared in the underground maze, where there are piles of countless treasures. A golden gate in his hand slowly opened, and a huge attraction broke out from it. Treasures flew out of it quickly and rushed into the Golden Gate. The huge thoughts quickly swept through the treasures one by one in the Golden Gate. Next, these treasures began to fall into different places in the gate space according to their attributes and powers. The treasures that filled the entire underground maze suddenly became sparse after being sucked into the gate. Lin Yi's thoughts kept sweeping through this space, and all the countless treasures were properly classified. The materials for refining the spiritual wave transmission device had long been sent to the House of Time. The inheritance items containing the information of the truth of the enlightened were also handed over to the Blue Star clone. The treasures left here were useless to the two clones. At this time, Lin Yi's third clone was selecting treasures that were useful for the cultivation of the 5 Daos. The most important of the 5 major systems of the third clone is that it can accumulate power infinitely. Now with a large amount of supplies, Lin Yi can finally start to continuously improve the upper limit of the power of the third clone. Lin Yi's main body is still cultivating the void tribulation. The space-time treasure tree exchanged from the Soul Master is not mature yet, so it cannot be used yet. And he is considering whether to use this external object to complete the cultivation of the void tribulation. He has learned from Bai Yulong that the 5 tribulations of the immortal Dao that rely entirely on external objects will have a huge backlash. At the last step, the backlash broke out. If he couldn't withstand it, he would die immediately. There was no suspense. Although he had a true destiny, he could not guarantee that he would survive the backlash of the void. Whether he could survive safely depended on luck. His first chi tribulation was condensed by his own talent, and it was not considered an external object. The second all things tribulation relied on the divine crystal to repair the true spirit, and it was not cultivated by external objects, and it was also completed step by step. So now he doesn't want to rely on treasures such as the space-time treasure tree to directly cultivate the void tribulation. Now there are the third clone and the second clone, and the power of both is extremely powerful. As for the main body, there is no need to pursue speed excessively, you can take it slowly. Unless my true destiny is perfect and my spiritual waves are infinite, I can use other means to accelerate the cultivation of the 5 tribulations of the immortal way. With a decision in mind, Lin Yi's confusion in the future was swept away. A large number of treasures were selected and collected in the ethereal appearance of Lin Yi's third clone. The system that controls the power of space, the ethereal appearance itself is a huge spatial product. The Wanchaiwu has completely returned to the right track, and has also entered the sight of countless people in the world. Lin Yi sat in his own exclusive seat, and the Soul Master appeared again outside the door. He pushed the door open, came straight to him, and sat opposite him. Now the war between us and the weird is in full swing in the entire void. Although we have the opportunity to fight back with your Lingbo weapon system. But the situation is still not optimistic. The output of the Lingbo weapon system is always too small. In a short period of time, the entire war situation cannot be reversed. We have calculated that according to the current output, the world group that can be rescued in the early stage of the war is at most only 1/3 of the entire life void. The remaining 2/3 will be completely occupied by the weird. Therefore, we have issued a retreat proposal to the entire void. Approach the world group where we are, and bring all their supplies into the world group close to us. Preserve the living force, wait for the gradual increase of the Lingbo weapon system, and then launch a large-scale counterattack. We named this the Great Retreat Plan, which will last about 100 void years. Lin Yi was slightly shocked when he heard the information told to him by the Soul Master. It will take hundreds of void years for all 2/3 of the world groups to evacuate to the 1/3 area. He suddenly realized that for the entire void, the span of any war could reach thousands of years, which was caused by sheer volume. Nodding slightly, "What do you want to see me for?" The Soul Master nodded, "We hope you can explore that area in the strange land again." The strange invasion suddenly entered the first stage, and there is definitely a reason. We suspect the problem is in that area. Lin Yi thought about it after hearing this, and agreed without refusing. Taking money from others to help them get rid of disasters, since you have promised others, you must do it. This is his promise, which is more valuable than 1,000 gold. Okay, when? The sooner the better. The Soul Master said with a slightly serious tone. Lin Yi thought for a moment and smiled, "It's better to do it today than to wait for a day. Let's set off today." The Soul Master was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then said, "Okay." 10 minutes later, they appeared in the palace of the chairman of the Void Naming Committee. The Lord of the Immortal Palace and the chairman of the Void Fate Committee were already waiting here. Seeing Lin Yi and the Soul Master coming, everyone didn't say anything nonsense, just listened to the chairman of the Void Fate Committee. "Manager Lin, this time we go to that unknown area. I don't know if you are sure you can go deep into the core of the abyss. Find out the specific situation there." Lin Yi thought for a moment and said, "Last time the power was not enough, this time I am 90% sure I can go deeper. But whether I can reach the bottom depends on luck. The chairman nodded slowly. Okay, then we look forward to your news. As he said, a jade token flew from his hand and fell into Lin Yi's hand. Lin Yi took the jade token, put it in his hand, looked at the president and said, "It's time to start." The president nodded slowly, and a powerful force enveloped the entire palace. The next moment, a huge vortex appeared above Lin Yi's head. The vortex burst out with a huge suction force, sucking him directly into it, and a huge force swept in from all directions. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 978. This is an extremely huge pressure, which can only be resisted by energy fluctuations at least at the level of the heavenly immortal Deo. Time passed slowly and quickly, and the next moment, he had arrived at a huge black ocean. Looking at the ocean on the ground, Lin Yi showed a trace of surprise on his face. Looking around, he soon saw a huge shadow covering the place not far from the ocean. It was the mysterious twisted area, but the environment outside this area had undergone earth-shaking changes. This is obviously related to the randomness of the strange land, and anything can happen. So he was not surprised that the desert outside the twisted area turned into an ocean. He always opened the true destiny solution, and the strange land contained infinite dangers, so he must be cautious. Suddenly, an invisible wind blew from afar, which was still 100 miles away at first, and the next moment it had completely enveloped Lin Yi. Hula hula. Endless black hurricanes connected the sky and the earth, sweeping everything. Even the sea below was rolled up with endless waves and rushed into the huge storm. Thousands of huge tornadoes appeared at the same time, turning the sea area into a land of death in just an instant. True destiny has no boundaries, and true destiny perseverance has long been opened. Every moment, Lin Yi can feel the spiritual way being consumed. The wind blowing in front of him was mixed with rain, the wind was like a knife, and the rain was like a sword. It would not only destroy matter, but also seem to affect the stability of the spirit and soul. He took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. His figure began to flicker, and he quickly approached the distorted area. A few seconds later, he had reached the boundary of the distorted area. One step in, he had entered a world where everything was distorted. The countless twisted and weird stones and the surface on the ground were still in a vortex state one after another, giving people an extremely weird feeling. Looking around, the true destiny solution was running at a new height. The thick fog quickly dissipated in his eyes, and he captured the location of the dark side door. Having been here last time, Lin Yi had no intention of moving forward slowly. A few minutes later, he had passed through a huge mountain range and arrived at the location of the dark side door. This time he came here in a slightly different direction, and walked more than last time. The dark side door was still the same, carved on a rock wall. Looking at this mysterious door, Lin Yi took a step up. He easily passed through the rock wall, and there were still rocks behind him. He took a step back, and the true destiny began to operate rapidly. The entire space-time level began to separate in his eyes, and he saw a black door, quietly appearing in his eyes. The black door was in a higher level of space-time. The most peculiar thing was that the black door seemed to have a sense of it when he saw it. The next moment, it sank into a deeper level and disappeared in front of his eyes. Lin Yi's eyebrows jumped. This is really amazing, is it spiritual? The brilliance of the true destiny in his eyes exploded again, and at the same time, the true destiny also increased its operating speed again. The mysterious dark side door appeared in his eyes again. This time he did not hesitate, took a step forward, and had passed through countless layers of space-time and came directly to the dark side door. Like a meteor, it crashed into the dark side door. Any level seen by the true destiny Daija, Lin Yi can reach through the true destiny boundless. The power of the combination of the two true destinies is absolutely extraordinary. The next moment, he has come to a world shrouded in darkness. It was dead silent here, there was no sound, only pure emptiness. Familiar with the road, Lin Yi turned into a stream of light, found a huge wall, and saw the mysterious palace outside the wall. Looking at this wall, Lin Yi's eyes showed a trace of thought. According to the phenomenon observed last time. After entering the palace, those guys found a bronze gate. Behind the gate is a dark place. It seems that this bronze gate should lead to the back of this giant wall. Last time, those people were there, so it was difficult to use means. This time I want to take a look. What is going on? Thinking of this, he did not enter the palace, but came directly to the boundless giant wall. He slowly raised his hand, and a vast energy gathered in his hand, turning into a ball of chaotic energy. This is the original mother energy, the ultimate mystery of the 10,000 energy method, and the most primitive state of all energy. It has the characteristic of dissolving everything, and a thumb-sized ball can destroy everything within dozens of square kilometers. With a flick of his finger, the mother energy of all things flew out and bombarded the giant wall. The huge energy exploded in an instant, and the violent power raged wildly on the giant wall, and dozens of kilometers in radius were submerged by this violent power. Lin Yi's true destiny solution continued to flash, looking at the giant wall, and shook his head slightly. It's so hard, there's no damage at all. The giant wall is still intact, without even a scratch. Lin Yi slowly raised his fist. During this period, his fighting way absorbed countless substances, turning his body into a product of the collection of all things, with the characteristics of hardness and indestructibility. At the same time, it brought incomparable power. A punch was thrown, like a meteorite from the universe, and the huge force directly hit the giant wall. Bang! The powerful force spread along the entire wall, but the kinetic energy was easily absorbed by the giant wall. Physical and energy attacks were ineffective, and Lin Yi felt the strength and solidity of the giant wall. After thinking for a while, he tried the other three systems he mastered in turn. All forces had no effect on the giant wall, and no matter what kind of attack, it could not damage it. The light of the true destiny solution in his eyes kept flashing, and the wall was being constantly analyzed. Everything was being stretched, from the macroscopic world into the infinite microscopic world. Countless pictures kept flashing in front of his eyes, and he was surprised to find a problem. This wall seemed to be a whole, it was not made up of particles. It was an indivisible substance, which meant that it would not be damaged by any force. The destruction of matter by force is actually just to decompose the matter into the smallest unit. But the prerequisite is that the matter itself is made up of tiny substances. If matter itself is an indivisible unit, then it is naturally indivisible. This is the most basic structure of existence, a state that cannot be decomposed again. After figuring out all the reasons, Lin Yi's heart suddenly moved. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 979. This giant wall is clearly the direction of material cultivation to the top. If the body can become the most basic material, an indivisible whole, there will naturally be no destruction. But if you want to dissolve all the elemental particles that make up yourself into a whole and turn it into a new, indivisible object, then there is no clue at all. But at least there is a direction, Lin Yi thought in his heart. Since it can't be destroyed, just go through it and see. What is on the other side? Under the protection of the true destiny, Lin Yi took a step and merged into the giant wall silently. The thickness of this giant wall is about 1,000 meters. It took a few seconds for him to reach the opposite side of the giant wall. When he stepped into this giant wall, his face condensed slightly. This is a dark place, without a trace of temperature, as if it is absolute zero, everything is still. He can feel the crazy consumption of spiritual waves. This darkness is an absolute vacuum. There are no rules of energy, matter, soul, space, and time here. This place has completely deviated from everything he is familiar with, a completely unfamiliar mysterious place. The most terrifying thing is that Lin Yi found that if his true destiny is boundless and true destiny is not activated, the moment he entered here, he would become a state of neither life nor death, without thoughts or ideas. That is because there are no rules here that can support his body to survive. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, that is to say, the reason why life exists is because the void constructs a stable environment. Allow the complex system of the living body to operate according to the rules extended from the void. When there is no stable environment of the void, all the rules in the living body cannot operate. It's as if time has stopped, losing the ability to think, act, and so on. The 5 disasters of the immortal way, immune to the 5 major rules, leaving the imprint of the 5 major rules in the true spirit, in a sense, is equivalent to building a brand new void environment in the body. This is an effect of eternity. Even in a place without the void, you can survive. Is this eternity? Lin Yi thought of a lot in an instant, and his eyes looked at the endless darkness with complex eyes. The light of the true destiny in his eyes kept flashing, and he seemed to be searching for something. Suddenly, his pupils shrank, and in the distant direction, he saw 3 blue lights. Those 3 lights were the 3 great void life forms that entered here last time. Jin Yu, Black Robe, Mysterious Shadow. What a coincidence, they are here again. Lin Yi's pupils shrank, and he saw the 3 people stopped at a dark abyss. There was endless darkness above and below, and there was nothing. But the 3 figures found a dark abyss, which looked extraordinary. Under Lin Yi's gaze, the 3 figures entered the abyss and disappeared in a blink of an eye. He flashed and urged his strength to quickly approach there. About 10 minutes later, he had crossed the infinite distance, which is a concept that only exists in space. But in this darkness, there was no space, but there was a concept phenomenon similar to distance between the dark abyss and Lin Yi. This is a state that cannot be understood in words. Lin Yi's self-perception of the passage of time and space is just a habitual conceptualization product. His eyes looked towards the dark abyss, and the light of the true destiny flashed in his eyes. There seemed to be an extremely huge area there. There were countless violent fluctuations rolling inside. This kind of fluctuation was so terrifying that it seemed that it could destroy a world at will. After thinking about it, he followed and sank into this abyss. The next moment, he entered a turbulent area. Everything here was chaotic. Countless fluctuations formed a storm, filling every place in this space. Every time the storm formed by these waves touched him, his spiritual waves would be consumed at an astonishing rate. However, at this time, there were countless people in the void outside who were killing Weird for him, so she had no shortage of spiritual waves transformed by Weird. In his current state, his spiritual waves were almost endless. In this frenzied area, his eyes continued to scan and look for the target. 3 figures covered by green light walked together, and the green light around them resisted the invasion of the surrounding ripples. Lin Yi looked around carefully, and he was observing this area from a macro perspective. Then, he discovered something amazing. The area formed by this wave seemed like a huge torrent, flowing out from an unknown place and rushing to another unknown place. Lin Yi found that the abyss they came in was located on one side of this torrent, and now Jin Yu and the other 2 were heading towards the opposite side. It can be vaguely seen that there is an area shrouded in darkness on the opposite side of this violent torrent. What is that? My true destiny can't be seen through. The darkness seemed to be covered by some kind of mysterious power, and Lin Yi's true destiny solution was very difficult to analyze. His current spiritual wave limit has reached an amazing level of almost infinite. He didn't believe in evil, and continued to increase the operation of the true destiny solution, and a huge ruined city slowly appeared in his eyes. Then, Lin Yi stopped observing the true fate Daoji. The consumption of spiritual waves suddenly increased, affecting the total amount of spiritual waves inside the spiritual wave sphere. This would affect the war in the void, and he had to stop. The spiritual waves had to maintain the operation of all spiritual wave weapons, and Lin Yi could not over-extract spiritual waves, causing problems in the war outside. That was related to the survival of the entire void, and even the Wanchaiwu would be greatly affected. Looking at the ruined city in the distance, a trace of doubt flashed through his mind. Is that city the secret hidden by the ancient gods? A terrible civilization war once took place in this twisted area. Is that castle the fortress of one of the civilizations? It seems that it is not simple to exist in this violent and mysterious area. It's worth a look. Following quietly, Jin Yu and the other two did not notice Lin Yi's tracking at all. At this time, they had already boarded the ruined city. Lin Yi also came to the edge of the ruined city afterwards. He stepped onto the ground of the city and was surprised to find that the whole city was emitting a strange wave. This wave of fluctuations can block the impact of the fluctuations in the violent area outside. Lin Yi was surprised. It's amazing that such a large area of safe space can be opened up in such a violent place. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 980. At this time, the true destiny solution kept flashing, and he found that this chaotic area was different from the vacuum world just now. It was full of wonderful particles. These particles were extremely small and had the characteristics of energy, matter, soul, time, and space. But they were all entangled together, and they kept conflicting with each other, and finally formed a huge fluctuation, which became this terrifying torrent. It was like the 5 and 8 rules were mixed into a ball and could not be separated at all. Lin Yi's heart moved. Are these basic particles the essence of the 5 major rules? Thinking in his mind, his eyes swept across the ruined city. Perhaps this place should not be called a city, but a fortress. The place he entered was a gap in the huge city wall. The wall of this fortress is a bowl-shaped structure, inverted on a huge plane. However, this city wall is already full of countless gaps, and Lin Yi came in from one of the gaps. He looked around carefully, and there were many strange buildings here, with strange styles and different sizes. However, most of these buildings were in ruins at this time, and he also saw a large number of skeletons. These skeletons were scattered everywhere, and various weapons were inserted into them. These weapons were all black, similar to the black spear he had obtained. Has the civilization represented by this fortress failed? He looked at these skeletons, among which was the Cyclops he saw in the twisted area. There were also skeletons of various other races. However, these skeletons were already riddled with holes, and it seemed that they had experienced countless times. There was no special power in the bones, and all the essence had been lost. Lin Yi's eyes swept over these skeletons and weapons, and he began to walk into the city. His eyes flashed with the light of the true destiny, and he was concentrating on collecting all the information here. However, he was surprised to find that all the buildings in the city were made of indivisible materials. But the fragments of the ruins on the ground were clearly fallen from these buildings. In other words, there was a power that could break these indivisible materials and destroy the existence that should have been eternal. This made Lin Yi feel unbelievable, and he used the 5 powers he mastered in turn. Each kind of power has reached the level of 10 times the heavenly immortal Dao, but it cannot cause any damage to these indivisible substances. But now these fragments are proving to him that indivisible substances are not really indivisible. I really don't know what kind of power can destroy such indivisible substances. Lin Yi did not notice that with his arrival, some things seemed to awaken in some buildings. A pure white shadow slowly floated out from a broken ruin. It quietly approached Lin Yi's back, without any fluctuations, like a vacuum. This white shadow has a human form, but 6 tentacles extend from the back. They twist strangely, looking very weird. When he came behind Lin Yi, 2 hands and 6 tentacles suddenly inserted into Lin Yi's back. Lin Yi then noticed that his chest had been pierced by 2 pure white hands and 6 tentacles. A strange fluctuation was spreading from the pierced place to his whole body. He had never seen this kind of power before, but he captured the effect of this power in an instant. Disintegrate all order, any orderly rules will be destroyed and become the most basic unit of disorder. Lin Yi turned around and punched, his hand covered with 5 kinds of power, like a big millstone composed of 5 major rules. This is his ultimate move after deducing the 5 ways, the innate 5 extinction divine light. This is a kind of power that can erase any trace of existence in the void. The terrifying power instantly hit the strange white shadow. Puff! Like a bubble, the white shadow exploded directly in an instant and turned into countless chaotic particles. This white shadow is not powerful, but the nature of its power is very strange. It can directly destroy all order and restore everything to the original chaotic state. Lin Yi looked at the white shadow that dissipated into the air, thinking in his heart, the result after this chaotic order is very similar to the torrent outside. The strange white shadow that attacked him just now seemed to use this kind of power, and all tangible things returned to the most primitive particle state. Even time and space will be beaten back to their original form. Lin Yi became alert. There might be many such dangers in this mysterious ruin. He began to move forward, and soon he saw 3 figures. They were shrouded in a green glow and were fighting with 3 white shadows. The 3 strange white shadows kept attacking them. The 3 used this power that was different from the void and collided with the white shadows. Every collision would produce strange results. The power they sent out would be decomposed by the white shadows at the moment of contact. It seemed that these powers had no effect on these white shadows at all. However, Lin Yi's true destiny solution could see clearly that this was only because the power used by the 3 of them was very weak. They were trying to explore the secrets of these white shadows. About a minute later, the 3 figures seemed to have figured out the reality of the white shadows while moving around. They quickly increased the intensity of their attacks. 3 torrents of light flashed by. The white shadow was blown up in an instant, turning into a piece of white particles and disappearing without a trace. Jin Yu looked at the disappearing white shadow and said thoughtfully, "These things are a bit strange. They seem to have the power to collapse the rules and restore them to the most basic state. I have never heard of any creature with this power. Have you found anything?" The mysterious black robe shook his head. "Everything here is different from the outside world. These strange white shadows actually appeared in this ruined city. There are only 3 reasons for its formation. They are the original invaders, or the remaining power of the city. Or it is something that has evolved from countless years in the city. After all, the torrent world outside is the original state. This relic remains in such a place, so it is not strange to evolve anything. Let's go, we are still on the periphery. Let's explore the center of the city first." The black shadow on the side still said nothing, as if he didn't like to talk. At this time, Lin Yi had already escaped into the underground, quietly observing them through the true destiny solution, and followed them. Since someone was taking the lead, he was naturally relieved. Moreover, he wanted to eavesdrop on what these people were talking about to see if he could get more information.